What unfolded in Manhattan yesterday alters everything. District Attorney Alvin Bragg unsealed 47 indictments. Not against peripheral figures, against Trump's inner circle, people who've stood beside him for 4 decades. Warren Buffett broke his silence. The man who never remarks on political prosecutions issued a warning that jolted futures overnight. This isn't politics anymore. This is a reckoning. For 2 years, critics dismissed Alvin Bragg as weak. Republicans ridiculed him. Democrats doubted him. The media wrote him off. They were mistaken. While headlines focused on violent crime statistics and policy debates, Bragg was constructing something unprecedented beneath the surface. A 47-defendant RICO case spanning 3 continents, 7 countries, and billions of dollars. The hush money probe everyone forgot about. That was the entry point. Investigators pulled one thread and unraveled an empire. 200 shell companies, 7 countries, decades of alleged fraud. Here's the architecture of the scheme. Executives allegedly inflated property values to secure massive loans, then deflated those same values on tax filings. Standard real estate fraud, but that was just the foundation beneath it. Phantom consulting contracts, ghost employees, invoices for work never performed. Money flowed through Delaware LLCs into Caribbean banks, from there to Cyprus. Final destination accounts controlled by Russian nationals under international sanctions. When investigators started closing in, new crimes allegedly emerged. Witness tampering, shredded documents, encrypted communications designed to vanish. This wasn't financial negligence. Prosecutors are calling it the largest coordinated fraud operation in American corporate history. FBI agents hit 19 locations simultaneously at 6 a.m. 400 boxes of records, 50 computers, $10 million in cash pulled from safe deposit boxes across Manhattan. The federal courthouse opened emergency processing rooms. They couldn't handle the volume. Defendants included names that have appeared on Trump Organization letterhead since the Reagan administration. People who know where every dollar went, every deal, every decision. These aren't scapegoats. These are the architects. Judge Juan Merchan didn't mince words during arraignment. The evidence outlines a calculated long-running effort to defraud federal and state tax authorities, financial institutions, and insurance companies spanning decades. Translation: this wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. This was organized crime in corporate clothing. Legal analysts are invoking comparisons not seen since the 1980s. RICO prosecutions that dismantled the 5 families. Andrew McCarthy, a conservative former federal prosecutor who regularly defends Trump on Fox News, admitted on Laura Ingram's show that if half these allegations hold, this becomes the largest corporate fraud case in American history. When Fox News legal analysts start using words like unprecedented and catastrophic, the situation has crossed a threshold. Warren Buffett hasn't commented on political prosecutions in decades. He stayed silent through Mueller, silent through the classified documents case, silent through January 6. Not anymore. According to the Wall Street Journal, Buffett convened an emergency board call with Berkshire Hathaway leadership on October 27. His message was blunt. When financial fraud reaches a systemic scale, it rarely stops with those already charged. There's almost always more buried beneath the surface. Buffett doesn't speak to hear himself talk. When the Oracle of Omaha warns about systemic risk, institutional money moves. Hedge funds are already quietly unwinding positions connected to Trump-affiliated ventures. International banks are reassessing relationships with Trump Organization properties. Buffett calculated that silence now would expose Berkshire shareholders to greater risk than speaking out. That calculation tells you everything about the gravity of this moment. Here's where Trump's legal team claims prosecutors crossed a line. Bragg coordinated with federal authorities and foreign governments, Swiss banking officials, Cayman Islands regulators, according to MSNBC, that international cooperation produced banking records revealing hundreds of millions in previously unreported income. When Trump learned foreign governments were providing evidence, his reaction was volcanic. In Trump's framework, any prosecutor willing to chase money across borders becomes an enemy of American sovereignty, a globalist, a traitor. But prosecutors don't care about framework. They care about evidence, and the evidence allegedly spans continents. Trump now faces a decision with no good options: stand by his associates and effectively accept responsibility for decades of alleged financial crimes, watch his business empire collapse under the weight of criminal exposure, or cut them loose and admit that the people he trusted for 40 years were criminals all along. Destroy the loyalty that has defined his entire operation. Either path devastates him. Either path prosecutors will document and present as consciousness of guilt. This is the pressure prosecutors specialize in creating. They force impossible choices, then watch which instinct wins, loyalty or survival. Self-preservation almost always wins. And when it does, they're ready. 47 indictments have fractured Trump's coalition. Moderate Republicans hoping for stable governance are backing away from association with an expanding criminal probe. They wanted policy wins, not perp walk. MAGA hardliners are convinced Bragg is a deep state operative and demanding blanket pardons on day one. They see persecution, not prosecution. Republican senators are privately questioning whether to confirm cabinet nominees who might be pulled into the investigation. The transition team is paralyzed. Democrats smell blood. They're already framing the narrative for 2026. You can't drain the swamp when your own organization is the swamp. 47 indictments exposed, undeniable. This case isn't really about Trump anymore. It's about whether the law applies equally in America. Every corporate executive is watching. Every compliance officer, every white-collar defense attorney. If Trump's inner circle can allegedly evade hundreds of millions in taxes for decades without consequence, why should anyone else follow the rules? That's how two-tier justice systems take root. Political proximity outweighs legal accountability. Wealth buys immunity. The law becomes a weapon for the powerful, not a constraint on them. Alvin Bragg built his career on a simple principle. Justice applies equally regardless of status or influence. Allowing these defendants to escape charges for conduct that would imprison anyone else would shatter that principle permanently. The president matters more than the prosecution. The coming weeks will determine whether this case advances or collapses. Defense attorneys will attack every procedural decision. They'll claim election interference, prosecutorial overreach, political motivation. Some of those attacks might land. Grand jury proceedings can be challenged. Evidence can be suppressed. Witnesses can recant. But 47 defendants create 47 opportunities for cooperation. 47 people calculating whether loyalty to Trump is worth decades in federal prison. 47 potential witnesses who know where the bodies are buried. Prosecutors designed this case to create pressure from every direction simultaneously. They're betting that someone breaks. Alvin Bragg just charged 47 of Trump's closest allies with crimes that could send them to prison for the rest of their lives. Warren Buffett warned that systemic financial fraud doesn't stop with the first wave of indictments. International investigators are providing evidence from Swiss and Caribbean banks. Conservative legal analysts are calling this potentially the largest corporate fraud case in American history. And Trump faces an impossible choice: protect his people and sink with them, or abandon them and admit he spent 40 years surrounded by criminals. This is no longer about hush money. This is about whether large-scale financial crime at the highest levels of American business gets punished or rewarded. If these defendants walk, the message is clear. The law doesn't apply to everyone. Power and proximity determine who steals with impunity. If they're convicted, it proves the system still works, that no one, regardless of political position, operates above accountability. The evidence is public. The defendants are named. The stakes couldn't be higher. This story ends one of two ways. Either the rule of law survives this test or it doesn't. Watch closely. The next few weeks decide.